Happy New Year, Frog fans. Welcome into another episode of Frogs Insider. We're a little rusty.
Yeah.
I'm a little rusty. But
Been
let's
a
go
minute.
ahead and hit that intro music. Let's do it. Hey, Frog fans. Welcome in to another episode of Frogs Insider. Jamie Plunkett here alongside Melissa Treebwasser, as always. Back from a little bit of a hiatus over the holidays. Busy, traveling for both of us. A little bit of a southwestern road trip for me. But happy to be back and recording again, Melissa. It's good to get back into this rhythm.
Yeah, listen, I got a couple Twitter DMs of people like, hey, where are you guys? Is everything
Yep.
okay? I love that people like care and miss us when we don't record. So just need a little holiday time, but we're back. We'll be back mostly on the regular schedule this spring.
Yes. We got a lot to talk about tonight because a
Yeah.
couple things have happened since we last
Just a
recorded.
few, yeah,
One or two minor things. TCU has a new athletics director. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about Mike Buddie, his opening press conference earlier this week. TCU won a bowl game
They
since
did.
we last talked. We're going to talk about the Frogs beating Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl. I was present for that game. Pretty sick, but was present for that
Yeah.
game. And then Hoops has been playing.
Yeah.
We can call it basketball, I think, still.
Basketball
at
is
this
happening.
point. So that is
Yeah.
happening for both the men and the women. But first, let us remind you about our fantastic sponsors of the show. This is Frogs Insider, presented by the Flying T Club. The Flying T Club is TCU's name, image, and likeness collective, the only NIL collective for TCU. They support over 130 TCU student athletes, and you can learn more by going to flyingtclub.com and seeing all of the different ways that you can get involved. You can make an individual one-time donation. You can make a recurring donation. You can have a corporate sponsorship with the Flying T Club if you own your own business. You can see about all the nonprofit organizations they partner with and how they partner student athletes with nonprofits. It's a really cool organization, and it's great for you to give for a couple of different reasons. First of all, you're supporting TCU student athletes and local nonprofit organizations. Two, it's a tax write-off for you because the Flying T Club itself is a nonprofit organization. And three, you get Horned Frog priority points by making your donation to the Flying T Club. So flyingtclub.com is where you can go to get all of the information that you need. We're very thankful for their sponsorship. Also, Frogs Insider is a part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Republic of Football Network. Very thankful to be a part of that group. You can go and find that feed wherever you get your podcasts just by searching Republic of Football Network. It will have our show along with a show for every D1 football program in the state of Texas. So you'll be the most informed Texas football fan out there. That's Republic of Football Network. If that's too much, you can just go search Frogs Insider, and our podcast will be wherever you get your shows, or you can go to the YouTube channel and hit Frogs Insider, and you can see post-game interviews, pre-game show. We've got podcast stuff going on. Melissa's working on some really cool stuff with women's basketball right now. A lot of cool stuff up on the YouTube channel if you get over there and hit that subscribe button as well. I think that's all.
I do
our
also.
Content.
Yeah, I
All
want
of
to make
our-
sure.
all of our business.
Yeah, I do want to make sure, just joining in the chorus of Horned Frogs with our thoughts and prayers for Jack Besh and his family.
Yes.
I feel like it feels like it was an eternity ago, and it feels like it was a minute ago. But as many people listening to this podcast already know, Jack lost his older brother, Tiger, during the horrific attack in New Orleans on New Year's Eve / New Year's Day morning. Sonny Dykes missed Mike Buddie's press conference because he was with the Besh family at Tiger's funeral. It's been very bittersweet to see Jack talking about his brother on multiple news stations, to see so many sports writers covering the story. Tiger was a wide receiver at Princeton University, and so he's definitely been covered by a lot of entities, and just thoughts and prayers and our best wishes to the family of a player that TCU fans really came to love deeply over the course of his two seasons on the field with the Frogs, and I know that we're all very heartbroken for him and his family, but it's been wonderful and unsurprising to see the TCU football community and the greater TCU community rally around his family in this time.
Yes, obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. I sent him a message the morning of when I heard, and got a message right back from him like normal, just, hey, thanks for thinking about me. Jack is an awesome guy. He just a window into his character. Obviously wasn't playing in the bowl game, was still banged up, trying to get ready for the Senior Bowl and draft preparation, and paid his own way to buy a plane ticket to Albuquerque to be on the sideline with his teammates, to watch them and support them. It says a lot about who he is as a person, and I think that's reflected back at him right now in the support that he's receiving from the TCU community. So prayers for Jack and for his family as they grieve and as they celebrate Tiger's life this week and onward. There is no easy transition out of a conversation like that, so we're just going to keep on going. TCU hired a new athletic director from Army. Mike Buddie, the Army athletic director, is now TCU's Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, the 9th one in history of the school, following up Jeremiah Donati. Melissa, I know that we've had a chance to watch some interviews with him. Obviously, the introductory press conference. I thought you asked a really nice opening kind of salvo during the Q&A there. We've gotten to know a little bit of his personality, but let's kind of backtrack just ever so slightly and talk about kind of initial reactions to the hire. When we last recorded, we talked a lot about the things that we thought the new AD needed to prioritize. We talked about the strategic vision for the university, campus master plan, all this other kind of stuff. Now that we have a guy in place, what was your initial reaction to the Mike Buddie hire? What did you think about it? And then now that you've gotten to see and hear a little bit of him, how has your opinion maybe changed or been shaped?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think that probably my initial reaction was similar to a lot of TCU fans, and my opinion has changed in a way that probably a lot of TCU fans can relate to. I think initially it felt like it came out of left field. You know, when we looked at the names that were being floated around, it was a lot of people that had Power 4 experience, people that were, you know, higher ups in athletic departments, significant athletic departments across the country, or it was kind of rising stars or people with direct TCU or North Texas ties. And, you know, Mike Buddie was a name that kind of was very low in the rumor mill list. I think one or two people had kind of circulated it on like Twitter and the message boards and things, but it certainly wasn't somebody who was considered, I think, a big, serious candidate. And so when that was announced, my initial thought was, of all of the athletic departments in all of the world, you're going to pick one of the two that has no NIL experience. And that to me was like an instant, like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing? But in all honesty, the more I looked into his history, his background, and of course now having had the chance to, you know, to hear from him at the press conference, and then also, you know, we got a little bit of a small reporter scrum afterwards, where we got to, you know, just really kind of, you know, be face to face with him and shake his hand. He casts a very impressive presence. I think his background, not only, you know, being an athletic director at Furman, the fundraising that he's done at Wake Forest and at Army are impressive, but the fact that he kind of cut his teeth as a fundraiser after his professional career as a Major League Baseball player came to an end. He's obviously somebody who is hungry. I don't think there's any complacency in either his work ethic or his personality whatsoever. He seems to be appreciative of the opportunity, but certainly feels that he deserved it, which I think is important. And he so far has said all of the right things, which only goes so far, but that's all you can ask for at this point, right? Is you want somebody who seems to understand the undertaking ahead of them, that knows his soft spots, but also is very aware of his strengths. And, you know, NIL is obviously going to look a lot different 6 months from now. I thought Jeremy made some really nice comments about that when he asked him about that in the reporter scrum after. And, you know, is funny and as good of a line as it was when Mike Buddie said, you know, when you're selling kids to a university that's going to require them to enter the military at the same time that, you know, Russia has invaded Ukraine, like, you're aware of recruiting challenges. NIL is a very different world than that, but you know, I think when we look at RevShare, and you had a great post on Horned Frog Blitz Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday as we're recording, whenever you're listening to this, but talking about, you know, reiterating that Buddie is the same as Donati and that TCU, you know, supports TCU being all in on the maximum RevShare. Flying T's still going to play a role in that, obviously, and it'll still be things to tackle, but it's not necessarily going to be his number one responsibility. That's going to fall, I think, to the people below him. And the important point he made that really stood out to me is Jeremiah Donati left, but so far the rest of that office is intact. And he has some great Mike Sinkfield, who knows as much as anybody about TCU, Ryan Peck, who hasn't been there as long, but is obviously an extremely good at his job, a very professional person when it comes to athletics administration. He's got some great support. He seems willing to learn, but also willing to act.
I agree. I think that I'm excited to see what his tenure as TCU's AD looks like. I think that it was important for him to kind of get out ahead of the lack of NIL experience. I thought he did that pretty well, even though some folks just continued to ask him essentially the same question over and over again, kind of like, yeah, but you don't have any experience, so what are you going to do? And then, but you don't have any experience, so what are you going to do? Just different inflections on the same question, it felt like at times. And so I liked his patience. I liked his ability to kind of address the same issue in a variety of ways. And I think the point he made was an important one, is that, yes, the athletics director is kind of the head of the department, is the one who's making all of the calls, making sure that that department is aligned with the vision of the university, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is that there are a ton of talented people in that office who have been thinking about this problem, have been trying to find solutions, have had hard conversations with each other about what it needs to look like for TCU to be successful, all the way down to coaches and student athletes, right? And so it's not like he's coming in and having to look at a blank wall and start drawing up a plan. There are well-equipped members of that athletics department that have been thinking about this issue for quite some time already under Jeremiah Donati's leadership. And so it's good to hear him reiterate that TCU is going to be participating at the highest level of rev share. Ross Dellinger had a really interesting article on Tuesday this week that talked a lot about transitioning from the NIL era to the rev share era, and what schools are already starting to explore about how they can use NIL to kind of play above the salary cap, if you will. And so that, Flying T Club will still exist. It will look different, but it will still play a role in making sure that TCU is competitive in the rev share and NIL landscape. So it was good to hear him say all of that. It was good to hear him acknowledge that it's not something that he has had to address head on. But again, when you're talking about a guy who's faced really complex issues as the AD of a military academy and as the AD of a small private institution, I think that he has the problem-solving skills and the staff around him to make sure that TCU is on top of its game when it comes to rev share and NIL. So I thought that was really impressive. I like that he's a baseball player. Obviously, You guys know I'm a baseball guy, so the fact that he pitched for the Yankees and the Brewers is really cool. The fact that he loves baseball, I think, is really good for TCU specifically, because Lupton needs some love.
Kirk sure is happy. Kirk Saarloos is over the moon.
Yeah, Los is thrilled, and I think we can all assume why. Kirk's thrilled for a lot of reasons right now. He's got a hell of a freshman class coming in, and he's got an athletics director that played pro ball just like him.
Yeah,
so.
We're not far from baseball being a big segment on this podcast too, which I know you and I are both so excited about. I can't wait to be back in Lupton.
Group workouts start January 13th, and then winter camp officially starts January 24th. I'm very excited to get back out there.
I think another thing when you talk about baseball is his love for baseball. I think bleeds into his love for the non-football and men's basketball sports too. I asked him directly after the press conference about like the future of Title IX and what that's going to mean for TCU athletics. And Jeremiah Donati basically said the 6 sports with the contract are where we're going to invest. And Mike Buddie did not deviate from that. And I think what he was referring to mostly was rev share, but he talked a lot about value proposition, and he talked about using creative solutions in order to manage to pour into those sports. He had a great photo op with David Roditi with the national championship trophy that they took up in the Legends Club after, and I think he's going to care about men's tennis, which also we're going to have to talk about them a little bit because my God, that team is stacked.
JPJ's back.
JPJ's back. And but I think that he believes in the value of TCU, and it's a really hard sell in this world. I like the purple shades of, hey, we've got something good to sell, and that's going to be good enough for some people. We're not going to just dollar chase. And I think that will be true in a lot of areas. I don't think that'll be true in football. I think that they will pay what they need to pay. But I think he's looking at creative solutions in order to support women's basketball, the number 11 team in the country, to support, baseball, one of the winningest programs on TCU's campus, and to continue to invest in men's tennis and beach volleyball and rifle, those programs that win at a high level but aren't necessarily covering their expenses with ticket sales. So
Right.
that was something that was good to hear. I think he gets it. I think he understands football drives the bus. You just have to look what he did at Army in order to see that he understands the weight and the importance. But like you said, he's going to invest and make sure that lumped in stadium renovation stays. It's not something he's inventing or he's pushing for, but he'll ensure it stays at the top of the list when you look at the strategic plan for TCU going forward. And he's going to make sure. I think he's a guy that is going to understand that Mark Campbell is a superstar and that Dave Roditi is a superstar, and that these guys need to be a big part of TCU's future as well.
Yeah, it's maybe not the hire people were expecting, but it seems like at this point it was the right hire. Turnkey ZRG was the consulting firm that TCU used to help with this hiring process. Obviously, the board of directors was integral in this process, as well as were President Pullen and Chancellor Poshini. And now we get to see what does the Mike Buddie era look like at TCU. We're going to get to know pretty quickly as the landscape keeps changing. The last thing that I want to touch on before we kind of move to the bowl game is I liked the piece of his Monday where he was talking about not working off of a manual for TCU. Like there's no kind of rote or standard process that is going to be followed for TCU to just kind of go through the motions and do athletics. But he talked about the hard reset that's coming for college athletics and using that as kind of like a blank slate of, we get to do what we think is best. We get to kind of carve our own path. I like that from him. I think that it means they're going to be innovative. I think it means they're always going to be thinking about what they can do better and how they can have an advantage. He talked about fighting on the margins for every little piece that you can get, which is something that TCU fans are very familiar with because they had to fight on the margins for so long. So I thought that resonated really well. Like you said, he said all the right things. And we'll see, how his actions kind of support what we heard from him on Monday.
Yeah, I think, I came away impressed. I don't know that anybody could have gotten up there and not been impressive in that, situation. But
Sure.
My initial reaction was, huh. My now reaction is, huh. I'm kind of excited. You mentioned innovation. He talked about innovation a lot. And I think that he, like you said, he worked at a place where there was no manual. He wants to bring that philosophy of not what should we do or what will we do, but what can we do. And I think that's really cool. To protect who TCU is and the culture and the community around a place that is really already pretty special, but to also understand that if you stay in the track that you're in, then you might miss something better out there. So I think he's the right person for TCU right now. And the challenge for him is to continue to be the right person for TCU right now, right? And I think he's certainly up for that challenge.
Agreed. Fully agreed. All right, let's move on, Melissa, to the bowl game. TCU takes down Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, 34-3.
They were not so much raging; they were just
Isleta.
Cajun.
Well, look, they had a lot of guys leave before the bowl game. A lot of impact players hit the portal before the bowl game, which is kind of what we're used to now in this new hard reset, as Mike Buddie called it, of college athletics. And so this wasn't the 10-win Louisiana that we saw get to the Sun Bowl championship and lose to Marshall. But it is still a 10-win team. It's a team that TCU got up to play. I think that there's a lot to be said for TCU coming out and being motivated and having energy. It could have been very easy for TCU to come out flat and to just go through the motions and not be interested in playing in this football game. We've seen TCU in bigger bowl games than this one come out with less energy. I'm looking at the Fiesta Bowl when they lost to Boise State, right? didn't really want to be there, didn't really want to be playing Boise State in a BCS game. So I think it's a really, I think it's a signal of the attitude of the team leaders, of the coaching staff to have gotten up for this game and to come out with the energy that they did. And then just to, do what they were supposed to do what they were projected to do, and just beat the brakes off Louisiana. So the second largest margin of victory, I think, in bowl games so far. I think that's the lowest total scoring output that any team has allowed in a bowl game so far. It's just the lone field goal for Louisiana. So all good, all smiles, all vibes. TCU finishes the football season 9-4 after opening it at 3-3, and Sonny Dykes salvaged something that a lot of folks didn't think was salvageable. And we can talk about the strength of schedule. We can talk about who they did or didn't play. But the reality is they've won 6 out of their last 7 football games. And now we get to see if that was mirage or if there's a true, legitimate foundation being built in Fort Worth for 2025.
Yeah, and I think that's what you have to look at the season as, and especially that bowl game, is a foundation. And it's not necessarily a foundation for play on the field, but for culture in the locker room. And that's what I took out of that game. To me, it's a much bigger deal that they came out ready to play. The defense played with that much heart and that much energy than it is that they won by the margin that they did. That Louisiana was a shell of the team, like you mentioned, that played for a Sun Belt championship. They got their quarterback back. He was clearly nothing close to 100%. That offensive line was a sieve. Like there were a lot of reasons where you go, like TCU, like you said, did what they needed to do. I liked the 2 first touchdown drives. I thought the play designs and the calls were really great. Beautiful. It was those. If I can see that, like 5 or 6 drives a game next year, even if they don't score on all of them, but like that kind of construction, that kind of counterattack, that kind of pre-snap motion, those are the things that I want to see consistently from this team. We looked at the schedule on paper and thought this year was going to be tough. Looking back in hindsight, it was not a very strong schedule. You have 1 win going into the bowl season over a bowl-eligible team. And a bowl-eligible team that got absolutely smacked by Arkansas at the Liberty Bowl, but that's neither here nor there. And you look at going into next season, this looks tougher on paper, but again, we have absolutely no idea what to expect from the Big 12 Conference going into 2025. Yeah. So I think we can all be excited that Hoover showed a lot of maturation, not just on the field in his play, but as the true voice and heartbeat of this team and the vocal leader. He got a lot more vocal as the season went on. You're losing a lot of guys that obviously contributed to that. But I think that I'm excited to see the next group and a lot of the guys that played in that bowl game kind of rise up and take on those roles. So it was not an entertaining football game after about the first quarter and a half. I did watch the entire thing, much to my niece's chagrin. But it was a 9th win, and that was important for this team to finish strong and to finish focused and energetic, because the reason they lost 3 of their first 6 games was because they did not come out with that kind of attitude and energy and that kind of desire and excitement to play. Yeah.
Hoover is now the TCU single season passing yards leader all time. He has he almost got to 4,000. There was a moment in the third quarter where Jeremy and I were sitting there and we were wondering why Josh Hoover was still in the game, trying to get this record when all of the wide receivers, it felt like, had been cycled to most of the backups. Eric McAllister had 8 catches in the first half, or 7 catches in the first half and 1 in the early third quarter, something like that, which put him 1 off of TCU's bowl record for most receptions in a bowl. And then he just didn't see the field. And so I think there were some cool opportunities for TCU to kind of finish on an ultra high note with some cool little records and some other little milestones that they just didn't go about getting. So Hoover sets the single season passing record for TCU, does not break 4,000 yards though. And one other thing too, because you mentioned the play creativity, and I thought they did a really good job in that regard, because they didn't have Savion Williams in this game to lean on in that direct snap run game. They tried it a couple times with Nate Palmer. They tried it a couple times with Jeremy Payne. Obviously Cam Cook didn't play because he's in the transfer portal. The run game still struggled, and I think that was notable. They averaged 3.7 yards a carry in that football game, which is right on par for their average this season, even with Savion in the backfield for a lot of it. something to kind of look forward to this spring is how does the offensive line cohesion look, and how does that impact the running game in a positive way? James Brockermeyer's not going to be back. He's signed with Miami now out of the transfer portal, which means that Colton Deary is sliding over to center. He played center. He looked great, I thought, at center in the bowl game. Ryan Hughes, the true freshman that we had seen at left tackle, started at left guard. We're just seeing some of these guys develop this spring, I think, is going to tell us a lot about what this team is going to be capable of in the fall. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how they address the run game issues, because they have to address the run game issues. They've got to get that fixed.
They didn't take any big swings in the portal, and obviously we know there'll be a spring portal window as well, and there will be a lot of guys who realize their place on the depth chart, and so maybe they sign, but it's a vote of confidence on the guys that they have on the roster and the guys that they're bringing in, most of whom enrolled early. There's like 30 guys or something that are early enrollees, which is an insane number. So I think it'll be really important because, we've talked about this a lot, but you and I got so excited about the run game during fall camp, only to realize that the defensive line was not up to standard at that point. And so I hope that helps them take kind of a 30,000-foot view as they go through spring practices and have their spring game and all of those types of things, and not just evaluate the talent of the running backs that are available, but the way that the line is blocking and why they're blocking. Now, the defensive line should be stronger. They do lose a couple of important guys to graduation, but you would hope with another year in the scheme and Avalos having, the spring semester to really hone in, you could see that defense get so much better week in and week out over the second half of the season. So you can imagine that it should be even better. And if you get MIO back, and you get Paul Awale back. I don't know if they'll. I think Michael will be healthy for spring, but Paul's probably sitting out till fall.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Paul's issue is the same issue that McCaffrey for the 49ers is having with the Achilles tendonitis. So it's just been a real back and forth recovery for him. I mean, even in the fall, before we knew that he was done for the year, there would be one day where he's on the bike, and then the next day he's in full pads and he's going through walkthrough stuff, and so it's just this back and forth. It's just not a linear recovery for him. But hopefully he's getting back to normal here pretty soon. Like you mentioned, 29 early enrollees will be on campus, which I think is going to be absolutely huge for the program, just to see what you got. John Denman is going to be one of those guys. He's the freshman running back in this class that TCU loves. Built like Kendre Miller. The staff thinks Kendre Miller is his comp. if
he's 80% of Kendre Miller,
if he's 3/4 of Kendre Miller, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Will he be that as a true freshman? That's the question, right?
Yeah,
because you've got to figure out some sort of consistency back there. But that's a good piece of the puzzle if he turns out to be as good as the staff thinks he's going to be for a high 3-star guy. I am interested to see if this team decides to run it more with Josh Hoover. He showed a little bit of mobility late in the season, still really just doesn't have that in his arsenal.
Yeah.
I don't think they've made it very front of mind for him. I asked him about it a couple weeks before the season ended. Just, hey, what have your conversations with Coach Briles and Coach Dykes been around scrambling or looking to run a little bit? And he basically said that they hadn't had those conversations. So I wonder if this offseason is an opportunity for them to do that a little bit, because you know that Kendall likes to run the ball with the quarterback. He loves to get creative with some of those design keeps. And I do think that would unlock some of this run game challenge that we've seen them have over the last 2 years.
I'm here for 6'5" Adam Schobel and the Savion Cat. Like, just go for it. Like, why not? Let's just see it.
Do that. Get a little Ken Seals action in there. He's coming back this spring, right? Just figure out a way to get that quarterback involved in the run game. I think that would go a long way to helping things out.
Yeah.
All right, Melissa, we're gonna have so much more content this spring when fall or spring football gets rolling. I'm pumped to see what that has in store for us this season. But right now we are in the thick of hoops. Yeah, we are in the thick of hoops. For better
or for worse, we are in the thick of it.
For whatever it is, we have seen some of the basketball games of all time. We have seen some of them, and my goodness, TCU men's. We'll start here. They are 8-6. They are 1-2 in Big 12 play. They lose their conference opener to Arizona, which I drove out to Tucson for. I was already in Albuquerque. I figured, why not?
Why not?
Drove the extra 6 hours, stopped at White Sands National Park, did like 7.5 mile loop at Saguaro National Park as well. And then I watched TCU basketball lose by 9 to Arizona and just not play a single lick of defense, especially in the second half. They gave up 49 points. In the second half, they allowed Arizona to shoot 57% from the floor. And that has been a theme through these first 3 basketball games, is their second half defense has been atrocious. There's no other way to put it. They've allowed, and I did the math earlier this week after the Houston game because I included it in my Houston recap. TCU is allowing Big 12 opponents to shoot 55.5% from the floor in the second half of conference games through the first 3 games.
Not good.
Now you're thinking, Jamie, well, it was a low-scoring game against Houston. They only scored 65 points. Yeah, but they shot 56% in the second half, and the defense is what had kept TCU in it to that point. The offense wasn't going anywhere outside of Noah Reynolds just go get a bucket. And that's going to be a challenge for TCU this year is, hey, your defense is going to have to keep you in games so that you have an opportunity to win games. They got stops very late against Kansas State, which is what allowed them to come back and win that basketball game. But like you can't go in to a game and then think, oh gosh, you can't give up over 50% shooting from the floor in the second half of a basketball game and expect to come away with a win. Like that is something that has to get resolved quickly. Of Houston's 65 points, 26 were points in the paint. That's not a ton, but Juwan Roberts got really going in the second half. I think all 10 of his or 12 of his 14 points came in the second half of that game. They got a lot of layups. They were wide open threes again. I mean, Houston's shooting the ball incredibly well from three-point range. They shot at 48% against TCU last night. Like, just not good enough defense from this team right now to be competitive in the Big 12 night in, night out. And the 19-point loss to Houston kind of exemplifies that. Yes, Houston is the number 1 scoring defense in the country. They are always very good defensively. They seem to have TCU's number because they are so good at defending the screen. Like, they're so good at defending the pick and roll. It's unbelievable.
Oh, they ate up TCU's.
And they killed BYU over the weekend the same way. They beat BYU by 25 or something like that. So it's just that.
When you're running a motion offense and you have I think exemplified by that Jace Posey pass to where he expected a player to be that was just a chest pass. And I'm not blaming Jace on this, but he chest passed it to a Houston player because TCU could never. They're so physical on the outside.
The 19 turnovers was a season high. It was the most since they had 27 turnovers against Iowa State last year, which is an obnoxious number as well. The number that's as concerning to me as the 19 turnovers, though, was that there were only 4 assists on 20 made baskets. Like, the ball movement just wasn't there.
Stagnant.
They allowed themselves to get trapped in the corner. They allowed themselves to get trapped on the baseline, and then they tried to jump past their way out of it far too often. It was just a really rough display of offense. The defense let them hang around. It was 29-26 Houston with like 17 minutes left in the game after halftime. And then from there, Houston just said, all right, we're done with this. Let's kind of move about our business and get on with our day.
And this is just a mark in a lot of ways of a young team. Young, inexperienced players let their offense dictate their defense, and TCU's offense has been a struggle, to say the least, for the most part. And it was really a struggle in the first half against Houston. And I think they just run out of gas. And I don't think it's because they're not conditioned. I think it's the mentality. It is really hard to play the type of defense this team is going to need to play to be competitive in Big 12 games for 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. It is a big ask, and it's a really big ask of players that aren't used to having to up their game, so to speak, and do it at this level for this long. I thought that you look at the spurts, and you're seeing spurts from guys like Trey White and guys like Noah Reynolds on the defensive end of the floor. Noah's been great on offense, and Trey had some incredible buckets last night. But at the end of the day, there's a big difference between doing that at, UNC Wilmington and Montana or wherever else, and doing that against Houston. Like, it is a level of commitment that there's not a player on this roster, because even Ernest Uday was playing, 11 or 13 minutes a game last year. So these guys they are going to have to understand the mentality that it takes to play this level of competition, to play this level of effort, this level of energy, and this level of just mental execution for 40 minutes. And a lot of them are doing it for pretty close to 40 minutes because the bench has gotten so thin now. because we're seeing the loss of Frankie Collins. Obviously, it was a big contributor to that 19 turnovers. They probably don't turn it over 19 times last night if Collins is playing. And then you've got the typical Jamie Dixon quick hook with the young players, so they're not getting into a rhythm. We saw it happen with Posey Saturday against Kansas State. He missed 2 threes and he was out, and I don't think we saw him the rest of the day. Micah Robinson gets a little bit of a longer leash, but he's still not getting time to learn and grow. And then Isaiah Manning will show you flashes defensively and rebounding, and then will come out like he did against Houston and just praying to make a shot. And I want the confidence. And that's what, like, he needs to be a 3-and-D guy, right? Like, that's going to be his role if he's going to play, but he's just not there yet. And I understand Dixon needs to win games. And so he cannot let these freshmen out for too long. But also, like, where else are you going? Like, this is your roster. Like, this is what you've got. It's a bunch of young guys and relatively inexperienced guys. Like, you got to take your lumps, I think, at this point and let them figure it out, especially with the style of offense that you're running and the style of defense that you're running. They got to play. And maybe they don't all have to play, but you got to figure out that rotation and let them, like, get them in roles and let them play those roles.
I would really like to see more Micah Robinson.
Yes.
I need to see more Micah Robinson.
18 to 20 minutes a game.
He has all of the physical tools to be a contributor right now.
Yep.
He's got the smooth shot. We've seen him knock down some threes. We've seen him get really, really aggressive perimeter defense-wise. We've seen him rebound the basketball. He's an incredibly athletic kid. I just think that where he is right now is he's so worried about making a mistake that he's too passive.
Yep.
And I could say the same thing about Trey White. And I think Trey White has another gear that we have not seen yet. If you go watch his film from last year, he's capable of just getting a bucket when you need a bucket. And I think that there's just there are moments, and there were moments against Houston where he was just too passive, or he passed up an open three. And I need to see some of these guys unlock a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that would do wonders for this basketball team, because I do think it's talented. I do think they're capable, even in the absence of Frankie Collins, of being really competitive. And whether or not it's a tournament team, that's up for debate. I think we're both kind of leaning towards no. Like, I mean, at full health maybe, but really I don't think that that's in the cards right now for them. But just go out, get some good experience, get some run, gain some confidence, and then see where you are at the end of the year going into next season. 8 guys that are sophomores or younger in this era of the transfer portal. You gotta figure out which ones you really need to hold on to.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do that just by giving them 8 to 12 minutes a game.
And that's kind of my point. Like, at this, like, it's not lost. You've played 3 Big 12 games. You're 1-2. You have only gotten blown out once, and you were in it, like you said, until the first media timeout of the second half. So this is not lost. But I think you could, if you're looking at this from a big picture perspective, you can kind of see who this team is. Their flaws are not going to go away over the course of the next, what do they have, 14 or 15 games of the conference season. They're going to get more exposed, because the competition level is going to continue to raise and raise and raise. And so if I'm Jamie Dixon, and I'm not, and he's not going to ask me this, and he's probably not going to listen to this, but if I'm Jamie Dixon, what I am doing at this point is saying, listen, we are going out, we're going to win every game. But in the back of my mind, what I'm saying is, our job is to play spoiler this year. I'm not announcing this, but with my staff, I'm saying we're going to be spoiler. My job is to build culture, to build community, and to build continuity. I want these guys to understand their roles. I want them to understand their place, because at the end of the day, every single one of them on this roster is eligible to come back, I think, next year, right? There's 1 or 2 seed.
I mean, well, Frankie has another year of eligibility now, because he got hurt right before the medical redshirt cutoff. Brendan Wenzel and Noah Reynolds, I think.
Brendan Wenzel, yeah. Okay, so those are the 2. And Trey's, that's unfortunate. Yeah. I couldn't remember if he was a junior or senior. So when you look at, you still need to play those 3 guys, because you need to be competitive. You need to kind of win. But I am really leaning into Micah Robinson. That's a guy you can build around, and you need to be building his confidence. You need to be giving him some leash. You need to let him play through the true freshman freshman mistakes. David Punch, obviously, like he's figured out he needs to play Punch. He needs to start Punch, and Punch needs to be on the floor.
Yeah.
Punch gets that lead because there's nobody else. Malik Diallo, I think they're doing okay with him. He's getting, 4, 6, 8 minutes a game. That's about appropriate for him. They didn't expect him to see the floor at all this year. So that's a bonus, and I think he gets it. I think he's okay at his role. You've got to figure out what you have in Isaiah Manning and Jace Posey.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. Those guys are young. They're redshirt freshmen. They're guys that obviously need a lot more experience, and it's that same thing. Like, okay, maybe they're not ready to play a road game at Houston and give you 20 minutes, but, like, you got to give some time to figure it out. And Jamie Dixon has never liked playing young players. Like, that goes back to his Pitt days. He doesn't have much of a choice this year. And he doesn't want to make excuses, that they're young. He doesn't want to make excuses that they're new to the Power Four. I totally appreciate and respect that. But at the end of the day, it's your reality. And so I think that figuring out what you have now and operating in the now while also having a big, keen eye towards the future is going to be really important, because next year you have a chance to have something really special.
Yes.
Especially now that you're going to get Frankie back if he chooses to.
And you got Bug Edwards coming in, who
Yeah.
is the number 60 overall player and is just a freak.
Bug,
He's a
Micah, and
freak.
Frankie with David Punch and Ernest Uday.
I like it. I like that a lot because Bug is, just for those who don't know, Caden Edwards is TCU's lone high school signee. They have a JUCO kid as well who's built kind of in the same style as Juwan Roberts. Not as talented, I don't think, at this point because he's been playing JUCO, but has that same kind of frame and skill set. 6'8", beefy rebounder, low around the basket, good offensive game. But Bug Edwards, Caden Edwards, the only high school signee, number 60 in the class according to 24/7 Sports overall. Number 6 player from the state of Texas. He's out in Duncanville, which TCU has recruited well before. And over his last 10 basketball games, he's averaging 30 points a game.
Yeah, wow.
He's
At
shooting
Duncanville.
At Duncanville. He's shooting like 42% from three-point range. He can create his own shot. He's a southpaw. He's a little lefty, so I love that. And he's got to put some weight on. He's got to get the frame a little stronger, I think, for college. But this is a kid who is the most pure scorer that TCU has recruited out of high school since Mike Miles.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. Since Mike Miles, I'm not comparing him to Mike Miles because they are built very different. Mike was a little shorter and a stocky kid. Bug is lanky. He's like 6'3". But he is the most pure and capable scorer TCU has recruited out of high school in a couple of years. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing him on campus. He's already signed. He's locked in. And if you're gonna build a young core, just build a young core.
Yeah.
Just jump in with
Take
both
the
feet.
hit.
That's kind of what I'm thinking at this point. All right.
Yeah.
Women.
Ooh, let's talk
Also,
about them.
also doing good hoops things. They had a quote unquote close game with Cincinnati on Saturday night where they won by 15. So afterwards, Mark Campbell was talking about, a little bit of adversity and how it was good to have a challenge. And it's like, oh, you won by 15 and you're 15-1 now. You're 3-0 in Big 12 play. You're sitting atop the conference standings. But these are, the wins over Colorado and now Cincinnati, Melissa, 2 physical contests. Colorado was more successful, I think, at being physical with TCU than Cincinnati was, although Cincinnati tried some of the same things. And we saw, I think at this point we've seen pretty much everything we've needed to see from TCU women as far as styles of offense, ability to get stops late, ability to run the court, ability to press when they need to, different kinds of lineup rotations without Sedona, Haley having an off night, Madison Connor hitting threes or not hitting threes, like all of the things that we've needed to see them kind of overcome, we've seen them overcome at this point in spurts or in moments throughout the first 16 games of the season. And now it really does, even though it's only 3 games into an 18-game conference schedule, feel like just don't take your foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Just keep going at full speed, keep everyone healthy, and just see how many of these wins you can string together when it's all said and done.
Well, and I think that's the big thing is keeping everyone healthy. I saw Mark at the press conference Monday, and many of you guys know their game. They were supposed to be playing at Kansas tonight. That game got delayed because of the weather up in the Midwest, and so they will be playing the Jayhawks tomorrow at 2 p.m. So make sure you tune in. And I kind of looked at him. I was like, I bet you're not too disappointed with that extra day of rest. He's like, we needed it so badly. I mean, this, like you said, Cincinnati and Colorado came at them physically. There was a lot of bodies hitting the floor in both of those games, and it wasn't just TCU hitting the floor. They gave it right back. When you have Agnes Eminopu and Donovan Hunter in your backcourt, Taylor Bigby, they are not going to shy away from contact and physicality whatsoever. They're going to initiate as much as they take. But I think it's going to be really important to do that. You know, Haley's been dealing with an illness. We have not seen her at her best for the last week or so. I'm hoping that extra day of rest benefits her. She is a player that I got to spend the day with the program last Friday, go to practice, watch them with the scouts, spend some time with Mark and the coaches in the office, and just like it was like the best day of my life, because there's nothing I love more than talking basketball and being in a gym and hearing the squeaking of shoes. It was perfect. But you know, he talked about one thing I noticed in practice, Haley didn't take a rep off. Yeah. Did not take a rep off. There was never a time that she stepped foot off of the court, and this was the day before a game where she was going to play 36 to 38 minutes, and she won't do it. And I asked him about it, and you know, she had some time where she didn't practice because she was so sick. But he's like, yeah, I can't get her to take a veteran rest day. Like he gives this is an old team, you know, like 22 and a half average age. He gives veteran rest days to Sedona and to Agnes and to Madison. Haley won't take one. And I'm hoping maybe she took an extra day of rest, because it's clear she just needed to let her body recover. But I don't know how you scout this team. I don't know how you scout them, because now, you know, you had Haley and Sedona forming one of the best pick and roll duos in the sport. And then when that was getting taken away, now all of a sudden Madison Connor has 7 assists running the pick and roll with Sedona, and to go along with 29 points. Yeah, I mean, it's 30 because it would have been 30 if she hadn't missed that last free throw, but I won't give her a hard time on that.
Stay in the gym, Madison. Yeah. Hit those free throws. Come on now.
Agnes Evanopu somehow has her first double-digit scoring game of the season against Cincinnati. It feels like she drops 20 a game and has 45 rebounds. She is among the most active players I've ever seen in college basketball. Donovan Hunter has just beautifully adapted to a role that sees her sometimes in the starting lineup, sometimes coming off of the bench. She's a credible six-man. Taylor Bigby came off the bench for, I think, the first time this season, and just was an absolute force to be reckoned with. Una Jovanovic, I don't know that they pulled away, or they don't know that they hang with Colorado in the first half without Una's contribution. I think she dropped 7 points in the first 20 minutes, and of course they ran away from the Buffs over the second half. But Aaliyah Robertson came in and had a big first half against Cincinnati. I mean, we talk about the things we'd like to see from TCU men's basketball. Those are the things we're seeing from TCU women's basketball. You mentioned it. There's so many ways they can attack opponents offensively. They are one of the top teams in the country at three-pointer shot and three-pointers made, and three-point percentage. They lead the country, or in the top 2 in the country in assists per game. Haley's on pace to break the single season assist record. So for everybody said that she left LSU because she couldn't cut it as a point guard, no, she just didn't have a coach that knew how to unlock her and use her. She's been unbelievable. Even on a night when she had an off night, she still, I think, was like 7-5 and 5 or something. So with like 1 or 2 turnovers, and she's just this team. The sky is the limit for them. But as Mark has said, as the players have said, the key is don't stub your toe.
Yep.
And we've seen Iowa State, you know, get beat a couple of times. You know, we've seen Baylor has had some issues. I mean, all of these teams have had that instance where they've stubbed their toe. And the thing that Mark Campbell has said that he's most proud of his team at this point, they haven't just like not had a game where they were ready. Kansas is going to be really tough. Kansas is a good team that's playing with a lot of positive momentum. There's not a lot of easy games left on the schedule, and they are obviously the team with the biggest target on their back. They have to go to Iowa State without a return date. They have to go to Kansas State without a return date. Those are going to be really, really tough games.
Not to mention home and home with Baylor.
And home with Baylor, yeah. So, but those one-offs with the top contenders in the league, they get West Virginia at home, but those one-offs are really tough because you can't even the score there. There's no tiebreaker. Yeah. So
until conference play at least, or conference tournament at least.
Yeah. So it's gonna be fascinating to see. I was talking to somebody inside the program. You know, no one's going undefeated. No one's going 18-0 in the Big 12. It's not happening. But you know, he said probably 14-4 is probably wins you the league. And so to start 3-0 is really huge for the program.
It really is. And, you know, we kind of touched on it already. Health is going to be critically important for this squad. Really, that's, I think, the only thing that can get in their way. And we're starting to see some of those injuries happen across the country, right? Ashlyn Watkins just earlier this week tore tore her ACL, the South Carolina player that dunked on Sedona Prince, right? And she's out for the year. And so that's a huge blow for a South Carolina team that's trying to defend their national championship last season.
Yeah.
And,
Paige Beckers gets banged up.
Paige Beckers gets banged up.
Looks like she'll be back, but
thank God, because, as a lifelong Dallas Wings fan, we really need her to get drafted number 1 overall. But yeah, just, and we saw this last year with TCU, how quickly things can change. And so you got to keep your rest days. I would highly encourage Haley to take a vet rest day.
Take a break, girl. You've earned it.
I take vet rest days all the time, and I don't play sports anymore. So it's so good for the soul, if nothing else. But get rested, do your recovery, take it seriously, and just kind of see where the season goes from there. It's such a fun time to watch this team, and shout out to TCU fans, because they have really started showing up for this women's program, and it's been fun. I think they had 3,700 folks in the Schollmeyer for their last game. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. The crowd does every single time they play, and I just hope that continues, right? Because the TCU fans have now gotten to the point where they are used to showing up for men's basketball, even in a season where maybe things aren't going to be so fun. Now you have the opportunity to start showing up for a women's basketball team in a season where things look like they are going to be incredibly fun. And so jump on this thing right now. Get in there. Tickets are so cheap. Skylar took the boys on Wednesday of last week for the Colorado game. Tickets were $6 each.
Yeah.
And so our oldest was like, "Can I bring a friend?" He's like, "Yeah, it's $6 tickets. Come on, let's go." And then he had so much popcorn and Gatorade that he threw up in the parking garage.
Amazing.
On the way home.
Love it.
So it's like just a
not that
day.
parking garage has never seen thrown up before, but it's
gosh.
fine.
Perfect day for an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I would encourage folks who have not gotten out to see TCU women's basketball play it to do so. It's a very entertaining game. This team is wildly talented, and their talent stands out from the moment that the ball is tipped off. So, just really cool.
I have encouraged a bunch of people to go out, and a lot of them have. And I will say this in all honesty, every single person that I've told to go to a game that has gone to a game has come away been like, that was awesome. I will definitely be back. And you mentioned the tickets being cheap. They had holiday hoops prices that were like $5, $6. But even when they go back to the regular pricing scale, it's general admission seating in the lower bowl.
Yeah.
So, like, if you want to be up close and personal to the action, like, you have an opportunity at a get-in price. Like, you can still get $10 and $15 tickets and have a chance to sit and be. And like you said, this team is special. Most of these players will not be around next year. Like, this is an old team. So you're going to want to be a part of it. I think there's a great foundation for the future, and for everybody who is freaking out about how do we keep Mark Campbell. I did not ask Mark Campbell about this because he would not answer it if I did. But I can say there's a lot of confidence around the program that he's not going to be looking to leave immediately. He's not going to be looking to leave. The move across the country. He's got youngish kids, and so I think his hope and his intent is to stay and to build something at TCU. Fan support will be a big part of that. He's been like we've seen that they're going to give him the resources that he needs to recruit. That they're willing to make sure that they can get players into this program. I think that TCU is on board with. I think Mike Buddie will be on board with that as well. So we need to do our job and show up. And over 3,100 people on New Year's Day, 3,700 people Saturday night. Like they're on the road for the next two at Kansas and at Texas Tech. But when they come back home and the students are back in session, I want to see that place sold out for Baylor, man. Like, I want to see that place sold out for West Virginia. Like, I just think that it's worth it, and they deserve it, and it's as good of basketball as you're going to see at the college level, men's or women's. Madison Connor, best shooter in the country, period.
Hands down. TCU, one of the best teams in the country, without a doubt. That's going to do it for this episode of Frogs Insider. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts just by searching Frogs Insider. You can go to the YouTube channel and find us there as well. For Melissa Treebosser, I'm Jamie Plunkett. We will be back in Sunday, Monday-ish to talk more about hoops that has happened. And, maybe there will be some more news. Seems like TCU's got a lot of news happening lately. So we'll be on top of it all here at Frogs Insider. Until next time, go Frogs.
Go Frogs.